This is a Fox News alert on a dramatic new revelation in the investigation into the IRS targeting of conservative groups. Investigators raising new concerns that a top IRS official may have inappropriately, even illegally shared confidential tax information with the Federal Election Commission. If true, it may show coordination between agencies to target conservative groups. Now, Congress is demanding all the emails exchanged between the IRS and the FEC. At the center of these new questions, Lois Lerner, you remember her, the now suspended director of the IRS division at the heart of this scandal. Back in May, Lerner was called before Congress and she invoked her Fifth Amendment right not to testify.
And while I would very much like to answer the committee's questions today, I've been advised by my counsel to assert my constitutional right not to testify or answer questions related to the subject matter of this hearing.
Joining me now, Fox News digital politics editor and the host of Power Play on FoxNews.com Live, Chris Steyerwalt. Welcome, Chris. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. And it's easier to understand why she did that, right? Once we know this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and so folks know, Lois Lerner has a bit of a history with the FEC before her time at the IRS.
Yeah, well, here's to understand how this works. What the FEC is supposed to do is they sort of act like a grand jury. People bring a complaint. In this case, it was Democrats in Minnesota brought a case against a conservative group that they said were violating election law. What's supposed to happen is that the sides present their cases. You did, no, we didn't. And then the commission decides whether or not to proceed, basically to let loose the hounds and have the investigators turn loose and go after these people, because otherwise they could be causing cost, delay in timely election process. In this case, what happened was, in advance of that finding, this lawyer, we don't know the name because it was redacted when the IRS released the documents, but this lawyer was dealing with Lois Lerner over at the IRS to get information about this conservative group in Minnesota ahead of this election, ahead of the hearing. That raises concerns for Republicans in Congress as they wonder what information was exchanged, because when you read the email exchange, it's clear that they've had some discussion. Thank you for sharing, basically. Well, what all was shared when? And since Lois Lerner won't talk, the only recourse that the congressional investigators have is to say, give us everything, dump it all that you've got.
Well, she said she would very much like to answer the committee's questions. Any chance they give her another shot at doing that?
Well, I'm sure they would be welcome. They would welcome her to come and share whatever that she wanted. But we have to remember the consequence, the significance here. If this is what the IRS has said and what the president has said and what his administration has said, this was an error in judgment, yes, and an error in procedure and protocol that took place and was limited to the IRS. But we've heard from Kevin Brady, the Republican from Texas, horror stories that he says were his constituents were subjected to, that after they filed with the IRS, they started getting called and visited by all these other agencies. They started, what they said was harassment. This raises the question, was there work, was information shared from within the IRS to other agencies that broadened out the targeting? This is the first evidence that we have that that really might be there.
Yeah, and it raises a lot of questions about during the period of 2010 midterm elections going into a big, huge re-election campaign for the president, whether federal agencies were, as critics and those who are accusing say, turned into political tools essentially to silence those who would have a differing opinion.
Yeah, and since Lerner worked at the Elections Commission before, that was where she first earned the ire of conservatives, when she was essentially working in a prosecutorial kind of fashion. You've heard from Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North and others who, during Lerner's reign at the IRS, that said that they were harassed and asked about their prayers and things like that. So she knows how the Federal Elections Commission works, and she would know how to provide what the IRS has. Remember, the IRS is supposed to be like a Roach Motel. Information goes in, but it doesn't come out. And if it was coming out, there's a much bigger problem than previously known.
I'm guessing some other Americans may like your Roach Motel analogy for the IRS for other reasons.
I didn't mean it that way.
It might be brought up that way. I understand the acting commissioner of the IRS, and there may be news on who's eventually going to be or has been nominated by the White House to stand at the top of the agency. But right now, the acting commissioner was on the Hill this morning, and I understand took a lot of questions. Maybe this wasn't going to be the topic, but it turned into the topic.
Well, it's certainly a big part of it. And, you know, the challenge for the administration, they've been trying to slow walk all of this stuff. They have taken a go slow approach here as opposed to grabbing the agency by the scruff of the neck and making big changes and all of these things. So they've taken a go slow approach, but they're running out of time in go slow. They hope they can wait out the news as they've tried to do on things like Benghazi. The difference here is when you have so many Americans distrustful of the IRS to begin with, number one, and two, the IRS plays a crucial role in the implementation of the president's 2010 health law. There's too much on the line right now for them to get by with a go slow, and we'll have our blue ribbon panel report back to you in 6 more weeks.
All right, Chris Steyerwalt, see you 11:30 a.m. Eastern tomorrow on the interwebs. Thank you.
You bet.